I feel something is brewing, something's about to explode. It was also influenced by Blake Lively's narrative.
Blake Lively just blew her own cover, and honestly, it's almost impressive.
She has a relationship with this writer, Megan Twohey, and then
After months of insisting she had nothing to do with that bombshell New York Times article from December 2020, she finally admitted that she was the source all along, with Brian Friedman's razor-sharp complaint set to drop. On June 23rd, Blake saw the storm barreling toward her and chose to expose herself before it could wipe her out entirely.
And she told me, referring to Blake Lively, that Blake Lively told her something, which is pretty new information here.
Blake Lively just delivered a confession so dramatic it deserves its own Oscar, The Hollywood. Darling has officially imploded publicly and spectacularly yesterday in what can only be described as the courtroom. Equivalent of setting herself on fire, Blake admitted to the very thing she spent months denying. Yes, Blake Lively admitted that she gave an interview to the New York Times. That feels like a recipe to self-destruct.
Remember the journalist who wrote, "We can bury anyone inside a Hollywood smear machine," about the alleged smear campaign against Blake Lively and how traumatized she was for all the SH that was going on.
Let's start with the infamous New York Times piece from December 2024. "We can bury anyone inside a Hollywood smear machine," this article painted Blake as the ultimate victim, a shining star crushed under the weight of a sinister Hollywood machine. According to the story, Blake had allegedly faced misconduct on the set of It Ends With Us and suffered a targeted smear campaign, spearheaded by Justin Baldoni and his team. It was heartfelt, gut-wrenching, and perfectly curated for Blake's carefully crafted public image.
They never revealed anywhere that they actually based part of that article on interviews that they did with Blake Lively. There's nothing in that article that reveals that they actually spoke to her.
But here's where things took a turn. Blake adamantly denied any involvement in the article's creation, claiming they figured it out themselves for months, clung to this narrative like a lifeboat, using it to shield herself from criticism and bolster her victim status, and the NYT also never dared to mention it.
And she told me, referring to Blake Lively, that Blake Lively told her something, which is pretty new information here because New York Times never said that they actually interviewed Blake Lively for that story.
Yesterday, however, Blake's house of cards came crashing down with a courtroom full of eyes glued to her. She finally caved. "Actually, I did give them an interview." The silence that followed was deafening, like the collective gasp of every person who had bought into her story.
Because they said that they only based their reporting on the CRD complaint, but Twohey here actually admitted that Blake Lively was the source.
This wasn't just a slip-up. This was the unraveling of Blake's entire facade. The same woman who positioned herself as a beacon of truth and resilience was exposed as the architect of her own narrative. She handed the New York Times the very details she swore they'd uncovered on their own. And let's not forget, the article wasn't just a sob story. It was a calculated weapon aimed squarely at Justin Baldoni's career.
So Blake Lively is saying here that she never had plans to go public with her accusations against Justin Baldoni, and it wasn't really that bad.
Blake's confession doesn't just damage her credibility, it obliterates it. How can anyone trust the narrative of someone who lied about lying? The drama has shifted from It Ends With Us to It Ends With Blake, and honestly, it's the most gripping plot twist Hollywood seen in years. The once revered Queen of Charm is now a cautionary tale, proving that even the brightest stars can burn themselves out.
You know, I spoke up because I wanted to address it, and I thought that I had, and I never had any intention of discussing this or going public with my accusations.
Blake Lively's innocence was always her strongest asset, a perfectly crafted facade that could disarm critics and win over fans without breaking a sweat. But here's the kicker. That innocence, it's as real as a Hollywood romance. The moment she decided to weaponize her sweetest pie image to orchestrate a career-ending smear campaign, she let go of the one thing keeping her untouchable. And now it's floating away as unreachable as that balloon at a kid's birthday party.
Well, this gives Justin Baldoni's legal team new arguments that New York Times article wasn't just based on fact.
Now, let's talk about Brian Friedman, the legal powerhouse representing Justin Baldon. He's been sharpening his sword for days, meticulously crafting an amended complaint that promises to cut through Blake's web of lies, set to drop this legal bombshell. On Monday, June 23rd, Freddie Friedman's revised complaint, rumored to be razor-sharp, leaving no room for misinterpretation, and our so-called Queen of Hollywood charm, she saw the writing on the wall and decided to throw herself under the bus before the legal smackdown could obliterate what's left of her already tattered reputation.
And so, to watch what happened next and to experience what she now is alleging was the complete campaign of retaliation, felt in many ways much more sinister than the underlying misconduct.
Blake's confession wasn't some noble act of transparency. It was pure, unfiltered panic, with Friedman's complaint looming like the sword of Damocles. She knew that the house of cards she's been precariously balancing was about to come crashing down. This wasn't about taking accountability or doing the right thing. No, this was about getting ahead of a narrative that she could no longer control, and let's be honest, it's not even a good attempt.
So in Justin Baldoni's lawsuit, he accuses Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively of colluding with the New York Times. And I think explicitly it says for months, that they were plotting with the New York Times for months to smear him.
Friedman's amended complaint isn't just some rushed paperwork thrown together in a few hours. Sources say he's been taking his time gathering every shred of evidence and meticulously connecting the dots, emails, texts, timelines, you name it. He's got it. Friedman's reputation as a legal bulldog precedes him, and he's not about to let Blake slip through the cracks with her carefully curated sob story. The word on the street is that this complaint is going to hit Blake right where it hurts, exposing every lie she's told and every narrative she's twisted.
Maximum Effort Productions. This is the same production company, same marketing company of Ryan Reynolds. We all have heard of Maximum Effort Productions. We've heard of them.
Why the sudden change of heart? Simple. Blake's terrified Friedman's complaint isn't just going to poke holes in her story, it's going to tear it apart at the seams. She knew that once Monday rolls around, her lies would be laid bare for the world to see, and rather than wait for Friedman to strike the killing blow, she decided to throw herself on the sword first. But let's be real, it's not bravery. Self-preservation at its most pathetic.
And there's something in that amended complaint that, oh my God, I can't wait to read it.
So here we are, just days away from the legal reckoning. Blake tried so hard to avoid Friedman's complaint promises to be a masterclass in accountability, while Blake's confession is already being dismissed as too little too late. The Queen has officially fallen, and come Monday, the world will finally see just how dirty her game really was. Stay tuned, because this train wreck is far from over.
When she first came out with all this, I went, what an asshole he is, you know? And
Everyone did.
as a daddy girl, you know, a girl daddy, I thought, oh my God.
Girl dad.
I was really angry.
Think about it. The very idea that Blake, America's sweetheart, could meticulously plan to ruin Justin Baldon's career and sabotage it ends with us is both audacious and chilling. We're not just talking about petty gossip or snide remarks here. Blake went full corporate espionage mode. Sources allege she and her team, led by the infamous Leslie Sloan, fed carefully curated stories to major media outlets. These weren't innocent misunderstandings. They were calculated character assassinations.
It looks like Justin Baldoni may have a very strong case against the New York Times. You're not going to believe this, okay? This pertains to data.
Justin's reputation was dragged through the mud. He was labeled everything from controlling to predatory, and it wasn't just his name at stake. His movie, the culmination of years of work, became collateral damage, and Blake's master plan reports show that by August 2020, 4 months before Blake even filed her so-called retaliation Lawsuit negative articles about Justin were flooding the press. Coincidence? Hardly.
Blake Lively is not a good person, that she has proven herself not to be a kind person, okay?
The Hollywood actress Blake Lively has filed a legal complaint against her. It Ends With Us co-star Justin Baldoni, alleging sexual harassment and a campaign to destroy her reputation.
Let's start with the lawsuit, the so-called smear campaign saga that Blake herself lit the match for in her case filed in November 2024. Blake went after Justin Baldoni and his team, claiming they leaked confidential information about her sounds. Dramatic, right? Well, here's the kicker. Her lawsuit didn't mention a single word about the alleged sexual harassment that was supposedly the foundation of her grievances. Natada. It's like filing a police report for a burglary, but forgetting to mention your missing TV.
She sees herself as Khaleesi from Game of Thrones, mother of dragons.
What Blake did focus on, though, was the Vans and Ink subpoena. She fought tooth and nail to secure emails and text messages, claiming they'd prove Baldwin's team was out to get her. But guess what? Those messages showed a lot of Blake's own hypocrisy. Instead, negative articles about Justin Baldwin, those started rolling out in August 2024. A full 9 days before Melissa Nathan Baldwin's crisis. PR expert was even hired. Convenient, right? Here's the timeline for context. Melissa Nathan joined Baldwin's team in early September 2024, yet by August 25th, there were already dozens of articles painting him as controlling and abusive. Who's running the smear campaign? Blake, because your fingerprints are all over the scene of this PR crime.
A man being fully castrated by a woman who is using toxic feminism.
Now let's talk about Blake Lively's confession and courtroom meltdown for months. Blake denied giving an interview to The Knit. She confidently claimed, "I didn't share anything with them. They just pieced it all together." Blake, because we all know investigative journalists just magically stumble upon private insider details. But yesterday, the truth came out, and it hit harder than any of her PR crafted one-liners. She admitted on record that she had indeed spoken to the Times suddenly. The woman who built a career on her innocent, wholesome image is caught red-handed in a lie so big it might as well be a plot twist in one of her movies.
Taylor Swift is declaring, "I am nobody's dragon, girl. I am not your dragon. I've stayed quiet. I've stayed away. But girl, now that I'm getting dragged in this, you're about to get run over."
And then the meltdown began. Sources inside the courtroom described Blake as visibly agitated, her voice quivering as she tried to explain why she had misremembered the details. Misremembered? Blake, you don't misremember an entire /ND interview with one of the most renowned newspapers in the world. That's like forgetting you're the lead in a movie.
So negative press swirled around her during this whole, like a month, right? Later, she would describe this as though it was the pile-on against Trump. Honestly, it's like most of us, especially in Republican politics or the news, this is called Tuesday for us.